Hey guys, this is going to be a quick tutorial about animation layers. I showed you this in class the other day, and I'm going to use the same file, which is my 12 frames per second walk cycle, which has stepped animation on it. And just so you can see what is going on currently, I'll highlight all my controls using the shortcut, which is found on the Pat Quick Select little menu, which you can turn on by selecting your main control and then making sure that Quick Selection UI is set to on. That brings up this little menu here. And then if you want to select all the controls on your rig, you can just click and drag over top of the whole thing, and that will select everything. So with those selected, you can see that I actually have 12 frames of animation here that are set to be every 2 frames, which creates a 12 frames per second walk cycle. And what I want to do is take these keyframes and put them on a new layer. The reason being that by default you can't turn off and on the animation on the base layer. So I want to take it off of the base layer and put it on a layer that I do have the ability to turn it off and on. To get going with that, I want to make sure that my animation layers are visible. And so you can find that located here. Next to your display layers, you've got your animation layers. By default, there's nothing in here because you only have one layer. So if you want to make a new layer, all you have to do is click this button over here on the right. And because all my controls are selected, when I select with this option, it'll make a new layer with all of my current selections. So all my controls will get added into this animation layer. There you go. And you can see that I do have a base layer of animation, which is the default one, and now my new one, which is called Anim Layer 1. I'll double click it, and that allows me to rename it. I'll call that one Walk. So you can see Walk actually has no keyframes on it, and Base Animation has all my keyframes that I have already done. So if I want to transfer these, I can just copy by holding Shift and, I can select by holding Shift and dragging all the way to the left. This red selection, now if I right click inside of it and say copy, that's grabbed all those keyframes. Then all I have to do is select my new layer, make sure my playhead is set here to 1, and paste. So now you can see that all my keyframes have shown up here, and he's looking really funny. That's because these animation layers are set to be additive. So it's combining the duplicates. So what I want to do is actually delete the animation off of my base layer. So it's the same process of holding Shift, clicking and dragging like that, and right click, and this time just delete. So it might not look like it's totally fixed, but now that I have my animation set on this layer, I can turn it off. And you can see what's going on here on the base layer, which is that he's just in this pose. And so Maya is combining these two things, which is why he goes all crazy here. So what I need to do is on my base animation, just make sure that he's set to the neutral original pose. The fastest way to do that, if you've accidentally selected away, you can select all his controls again by just clicking and dragging over top of the quick select menu. Then hold Shift and click the foot once and click the foot twice. And why I want to do that is because I want to have access to all the translates, all the rotates, and then also all the special values on the feet. And when you do the quick select by doing like that, the last control that gets selected is this upper corner lip control, which it only has the translate values visible. So I want to be able to zero out everything all at once. So if I hold Shift, click on the foot once, click on the foot twice, it makes everything visible. Then I can just click and drag down the whole thing, hit 0, and enter. Now, what will happen when I drag on the timeline is it'll look like nothing is fixed. And that's because Maya's a little stubborn. So when I go like that, he goes back to his pose. So you kind of have to force Maya to update in memory what is going on the base animation. So to do that, I'll repeat the same process of selecting everything, hitting 0, making him go to his neutral pose. But now this time I'll hit S. And that puts a keyframe here, and it just updated in memory what is going on in the base animation layer. And now that it's been updated, I can actually delete that keyframe because I don't need it anymore. So there you go. Now that this animation is basically neutral, if I turn my walk back on, it looks correct. Great. Well, cool. So, a couple more things that are helpful to know with animation layers is that you can add and remove objects to a layer simply by, when they're selected, if you have your layer selected, you can right click on it and you can say remove selected objects or add selected objects. So, for example, this control here, which flips your IK and FK controls back and forth, it didn't get added into my animation layer. So no keyframes would be able to show up on this animation layer. If I did want that to be here, I would just right click and say add selected objects. Now, if I were to put keyframe animation here, or let's say I'll make sure that all these IKs and FKs are set like that, and then I turn that off, that keyframe is not on the base layer of animation, but it is here on this walk layer. So there you go. I'll remove that because I don't need that. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can, without having kind of anything selected, because this layer was set up with all the right controls, it's nice and easy to just go ahead and duplicate layers so that you can kind of make edits or variations to create alternate versions of your walk cycle. So you can just right click on a layer and say duplicate layer and then hide that one and work on this copy. If you want to make any kind of like modifications to this walk. So let's say maybe I wanted the down pose to be really far down for all my all my contact poses. So now this walk has this super low point like that, but this walk stays the same. Cool. You could also maybe switch all of the transitions to be auto transitions so that he does this really weird walk cycle. Anyway, it's whatever you want to do basically, but it's as simple as right clicking and saying duplicate layer so that you can create variations and kind of modifications to a current animation that you have. So maybe you'll call this smooth walk. Okay, well, I can't think of anything else that I was planning on covering, but if you guys have any questions on the stuff that I've talked about tonight, just send me an email or bring your questions to class and I will answer them as best I can. All right, thanks.